Hi everybody, movie reviewer next door here, and I'm not happy. I'm at least glad that there's only one movie left, but the last movie is 2 hours and 43 minutes. This is the first Bond film that I've actively disliked watching. Scratch that, hated. Because this film doesn't feel like it wants to be a Bond film. It feels like it wants to be something completely different. Also, I've heard people saying that people have said that my audio is a bit staticky. I can't really help that. I'm using a microphone it's basically the same as a USB microphone, like a wherever it is, a Cool Blue or whatever, the like USB mic. It's basically like that, so I can't really help things unless I get an XLR setup, which is pretty expensive, and I don't have the money for that. The film is Spectre, directed by Sam Mendes, came out in 2015, and it stars Daniel Craig, Christoph Waltz, Léa Seydoux, Ralph Fiennes, Naomi Harris, Ben Whishaw, Monica Bellucci, Dave Bautista, and Andrew Scott. Now, in this film, a cryptic message from Bond's past sends him on a trail to uncover a sinister organization. While M battles political forces to keep the Secret Service alive, Bond peels back the layers of deceit to reveal the terrible truth behind Spectre. Now, what are my thoughts on Spectre before I get into the whole thing, which, again, this is going to have to be a spoiler review. Yeah, I didn't like it. I think this is easily the worst film in the series. I know there are many people that'll say Die Another Day, Quantum of Solace, they'll even say Octopussy. Those people are allowed to feel those things, but Octopussy, I said, was decent. There was some decent action. Roger Moore is still in top form in that film, I think. I think that's his last film in top form. And to be honest, I didn't mind it as a bit of, like, escapist entertainment. It was fun. Quantum of Solace was tonally consistent. It actually felt like a fucking Bond film. It was a good continuation of the story of Casino Royale. And I feel like a lot of people just hate on Quantum of Solace because they wanted it to be as epic as Casino Royale in some way, and people put Casino Royale on a pedestal and they're like, oh, the next film isn't as good as it, therefore it's terrible. I don't think that at all. I know there was like a writer's strike or something around the time, and people say that's why it's horribly written. Sorry about that. But I never saw an issue with the writing. I have an issue with the writing in this film. I really do. But and also Die Another Day, I did give a 6, but the things that kept me from giving it a lower score like this film, Pierce Brosnan is still fucking great in the role. He really is. He sells all these terrible lines he's given. There's some really good action in parts. There's the car chase on the ice. There's the opening sequence. And there is some fun dialogue. It's just there's a lot of bad dialogue too. But overall, this film doesn't really have anything that can endear me to it. It feels like every one of these Craig films is trying to one-up each other. They're trying to be... each of them is trying to be the very best. They're not just trying to be, good Bond films. They each want to be the best, which is a weird mindset that people have nowadays, where each of these, like, comic book movies that come out, they have to one-up each other with the CGI and all that. They have to one-up each other with the actors. They have to get more and more high-dollar actors. That's what this feels like. And to be honest, it It's kind of sad because this feels nothing like a Bond film at all to me. Now, again, before I get on with the actual review with the cast and all that and my problems with the actual movie, spoilers from here on. I know I said it in the title, but just warning people. The cast. Daniel Craig is James Bond. I think he's decent in this film. I do. I think he can play the role. He's still my least favorite. I'd still take George Lazenby over him because at least George Lazenby, I feel something during the emotional scenes. I really still don't with Craig, other than in Casino Royale, the scene of him watching Vesper die. I felt something there, but here I don't really. He's still decent in the action. He still fits in the role. Christoph Waltz as Franz Oberhauser, or Blofeld. What a shock. The head of Spectre is Blofeld. What a twist. I'll get to that. Christoph Waltz is wasted in this film. He's given nothing to do. He's given nothing Blofeld-like other than a white cat, and that's supposed to be when you see that, that's supposed to be the twist. Anybody who saw the trailer or anything leading up to the film would have known that this is fucking Blofeld, because the film is called Spectre. You can't have a film just like in Die Another Day where Miranda Frost turned out to be on the other side. Don't have a character last name Frost in an ice-themed movie be your twist villain, your twist henchman to the villain. Here's the same thing, but Christoph Waltz just doesn't come off as scary or anything. He's given nothing to do. I think it's the direction, because Christoph Waltz is a great actor. In Glorious Bastards, he deserved an award for that performance. I don't know if he did. I'm just saying he deserved some kind of recognition for playing that character. Léa Seydoux as Dr. Madeline Swan. I don't hate her. I just don't buy her as Bond's one true love. I don't see it at all. I don't buy their chemistry. I don't buy them falling in love. I don't buy it. I just don't. With Vesper, I had second thoughts because of the way it was paced, where it would go from one scene of them just being playful and there being no romantic chemistry, more friendly chemistry, to a scene of them crying in a shower together, to a scene of them kissing. Like, I feel like if they paced it out better, I would be able to fully believe him and Vesper falling in love. And the fact that Casino Royale is the first book in the series and the film is trying to be an origin story for Bond as 007. I buy it. I can buy it because I can buy him falling in love, and then the reason throughout these movies he just doesn't try to latch on to women is because he's afraid of losing them. He's afraid of giving too much attention to them. There it makes sense. Here it feels like a conscious decision to appease feminists who can't stand Bond sleeping around with women, even though that's what most MI6 agents in the field, CIA, FBI, NSA, all of these agents that get put out in the field, undercover and all that, end up sleeping with women, men, anybody that they have to in order to get information. I'm sorry to break it to you, but that's how it is. Look it up. Read the thing about Roald Dahl, everyone's favorite children's book writer, being an MI6 agent or some type of British agent sleeping with women in order to get information. Read about that. But yeah, Léa Seydoux, just, I don't buy it. I think she's been better in other things. I don't really care for her here. I'm guessing she was in this film because she was in Blue is the Warmest Color, that lesbian film, which I'll be damned if I'm gonna watch a 3-hour-long lesbian film. I'll be damned. But yeah, literally 3 hours long. Jesus fucking Christ. Ray Fiennes as M. He's there. He doesn't really do much. At least in the older Bond films, it was a thing to have M be in the office. The fact that nowadays they have to shove M into the story and bloat the runtime as much as they do with these Craig films, other than Quantum of Solace. They keep putting these key members of MI6 into the battleground where it becomes a fucking joke. But he's alright. Naomi Harris is Moneypenny. She's also given not much to do. At least in the last film, they gave her a substantial amount to do. So it felt like she was part of the story. But other than Naomi Harris being pretty and not... and having a quip or two, there's not much to her character here. Ben Whishaw is Q. He also feels like he's shoved into this film. It feels like there's not much of a reason for him to be there, especially since Bond is supposed to be on leave. So he is literally shoved into the story because they had to have Bond go rogue again, like they did with frickin' License to Kill and Quantum of Solace. In License to Kill, it made sense. Well, okay, in both License to Kill and Quantum of Solace, it makes sense. He's trying to get revenge, so. Monica Bellucci is Lucia Sciarra. She's the wife of some guy that Bond kills in the opening. She's fine. Dave Bautista as Mr. Hanks, he has one word to say, and that's really disappointing because Dave Bautista is a lot more charismatic than a lot of other MMA/WWE fighters turned actors, so having him give one line is ridiculous. And Andrew Scott as Max Denby, or C, he's there as a secondary villain. He's just there. He's just supposed to be there to be menacing, which he's not. The score by what's this fucking guy's name? I know I'm 12 minutes into this. This is gonna be a long one probably. The score by Thomas Newman. It's a big mixed bag here. There's some really great music here. Some of it sounds like lounge music. There's a song that plays when Bond is in his apartment talking to Moneypenny, where it's like ding 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 ding, and it doesn't fit at all. And there's a lot of music in this just ripped straight from Skyfall. The da 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 da, or the da 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 da. They use that like 5 different times. Like, this has got to be the worst composer. Monty Norman, at least in Dr. No, created the James Bond theme, so I can forgive the rest of his soundtrack, the rest of his score in Dr. No. Here, it is literally generic action music and shit that just does not fit, and he's recycling his own work. So, I don't know what the fuck happened here. This film took 3 years to make. There should have been plenty of time for the music for someone to go back and be like, oh yeah, that music there sounds exactly like what you did for Skyfall. What's that about? I don't know. But yeah, let me just get into talking about this movie, because this is a fucking mess. This whole film is a fucking mess. Like, I already thought Skyfall was a bit of a mess with how it tried to be both a serious Bond film, like a dead serious Bond film, and it also wanted to be a, like, over-the-top action spectacular at moments. Like I said, the scene where Silva's climbing up the ladder, and also the convenient writing where characters can shoot perfectly at certain points, but at certain points Bond is just like, oh no I missed, oh no I missed, and then literally in like the next scene or the next day within the film, he's a perfect shot, he's killing all these people with a shotgun from a long range, and it just makes no fucking sense. This film, it's even worse. It's not specifically that, it's the writing. The writing is very dumb. The writing here is on par with Die Another Day. And I know a lot of people will probably disagree with me there. It really is. The things that happen in this story make so little sense. And the way that characters speak, where Monica Bellucci and Bond end up having sex after Bond saves her from being killed by these two bodyguards she has. I guess they were hired by Spectre because the guy that Bond kills was part of Spectre or something like that. And I'll get to the whole connection with Spectre. They sleep together. She gives him a name. I forgot exactly what she said, but it's just... she's... This film and Skyfall feel like the same fucking movie at many times, with how they're written, with how events happen. Like, the way they happen feels so much the same. And God, this film is so dragged out. It's 2 hours and 28 minutes, and so much of it is wasted space. A good 40 minutes could have been cut out of this film if either characters said something quicker or didn't take so much time to do certain things. There are shots that go on for forever. The opening shot, I understand. They want to show off that they did a one take in Mexico City during Dia de los Muertos. But it just feels like they're showing off, and it doesn't feel like a Bond film shot. It doesn't feel... none of this feels like a Bond film. It really doesn't. It feels like a generic spy film that's like, oh yeah, we're definitely Bond, by throwing in little Easter eggs from the previous movies, and it's just... it just feels like this film is such a mess. I'll just go ahead and say, I have a ton of problems with this film. Again, Ralph Fiennes is trying, I guess. He's given nothing to do other than just be like, oh, see, you're trying to take away the MI6 program. Oh, where have you heard that before? Skyfall. In Skyfall, they were talking about how MI6 is obsolete, and the 00 program is obsolete, and we don't need it anymore. Oh, we have that repeated here. We didn't need that repeated. We didn't need that plot point at all. And, I mean, it's all M's fault. It's all the previous M's fault about that. But yeah, here we have, like, oh, C's trying to take over something. We find out later that Blofeld hired C to do this, to infiltrate, and it's just like, oh, what a shock. I definitely couldn't tell that C was a bad guy, guys. He was so threatening. He was such a valid threat. Oh, what else is there? There's a ton. They bring back Mr. White just to have him kill himself. I mean, I'm glad they at least finished that whole thing in the plot, because the original ending of Quantum of Solace dealt with Bond tracking down Mr. White and killing him, and it would have cut to credits or something. I don't think the footage has ever been seen, but it was shown in the Quantum of Solace video game that's how Mr. White died in the original ending. But because that video game was being made while the film was still in development, they ended up changing the ending. So the video game is the only real source for that. But I kind of wish they had done that, because Mr. White doesn't factor into this other than Bond meeting and falling in love with his daughter, Madeline Swan. Again, she's not a very substantial character. I don't buy her being in love with Bond. I don't buy her being the one true love. I don't. Especially after what he went through with Vesper, what he went through with Tracy, which I guess still happened in this universe, since they keep trying to tie all four of these Bond films together. And I don't understand why. I can understand tying Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace together. Perfectly fine with that. Bond finally getting rid of the guy who, Dominic Green, who had more of a hand in Vesper's death. That is satisfying. But continuing it on to Skyfall and Spectre, to the point where each film does not feel complete, where Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace feel like a complete combo. I could watch those two together and have a good time. Skyfall I still thought was decent because of Craig and a couple of the action sequences. But then you get to Spectre, where they just basically have Blofeld in dialogue. This film has some of the worst dialogue. You cannot tell me that Quantum of Solace has worse dialogue. The line where Bond, like, falls onto the truck and says, "You and I have a mutual friend," and shoots the guy in the face, I thought that was funny. I had fun with Quantum of Solace. And it wasn't too long. It was an hour and 46 minutes, the shortest Bond film yet, and I liked that it was short. Some people might say it was short because of the writer's strike. I don't care. I didn't mind the writing in Quantum of Solace, because Quantum of Solace was fun. I had fun with Quantum of Solace. I did not have fun with this. And this has the worst writing of the entire series. Not Die Another Day, not Quantum of Solace, this film. Because they have Blofeld in dialogue say, Le Chiffre, frickin' Silva, Green, all three of those worked for Spectre, but they weren't the ones who killed Vesper. I was. Oh, really? I can tell they really... They want to make Blofeld the greatest villain of all Bond. You know what other film in the series of Craig's films did that, where they tried to make the villain the best of the series? Skyfall. I didn't buy it. Silva was not a terrifying villain. He wasn't threatening. Nothing he did was substantial other than killing the members of Parliament. But that was M's fault. It was. She chose to not evacuate anybody. She is to blame for that, not Silva. And the things that she did to Silva, I can fucking understand why he shot them. I can understand her like leaving him and all that. In this film, the fact that they have to bring it all down to Blofeld. Like, oh, all these things that happened. Even though Blofeld was not present in Casino Royale, was not present in Quantum of Solace, was not present in Skyfall, in any way, shape, or form. This is poor writing to try to connect all three of these films to Spectre. That does not work. It doesn't. If anyone wants to explain to me in the comments how it does, feel free to. I am open to all of this, as long as I get a good explanation. But the fact that they write in this bullshit just to have Blofeld in this film pisses me off, because it doesn't feel earned. It feels like it feels like a last minute thing, because Blofeld doesn't appear until like halfway through the movie. Like, he doesn't reveal himself as Blofeld until halfway through the movie. So how is there any setup for this? It's just all it all culminates in a scene where Blofeld shows the footage of Mr. White killing himself, and Lea Seydoux isn't looking at Madeline Swan isn't looking at it. And then there's like a torture scene where, oh my god, one of the worst things that this film did. Bond and Blofeld are revealed to be brothers. Let that sink in. Anyone watching this review probably already knows that. Does anyone want to explain to me the issue with this? They're trying to do the whole trope of Bond's memory of his parents and all that being, suppressed memories. They're trying to do that, where Bond doesn't remember that Blofeld was his brother. I think he'd fucking remember. I think he'd very much fucking remember. And this makes no sense. They never explain it further than Blofeld saying, oh yeah, my father taught you how to shoot, how to climb, how to all that, and apparently Blofeld back then was named Franz Oberhauser, and after he killed his father, covered it up, making it look like a climbing accident, and then he changed his name to Ernst Stavro Blofeld. That's the explanation we get. We never get an explanation for why Bond doesn't remember Blofeld, why Bond doesn't remember him, Blofeld's father, taking him in after his parents died. You know why this comes out of nowhere? It's because in Skyfall, they made you think that Albert Finney's character took care of Bond. Because like he said in Skyfall, he said when Bond's parents died, he stayed in the cellar for 2 days. And when he came out, he was no longer a boy. Albert Finney's character was supposed to have been the one that took care of him. So now they're going to change that in this film. They're retconning so much shit in this film. They retcon it so that Blofeld's dad took him in. You want to explain to me why that sounds stupid? It's because it is. I mean, I do have other issues with this film. There's obviously the fact that this film is terribly paced. It's terribly paced. It's literally 2 hours and 28 minutes. We spend so much time doing menial shit that has nothing to do with the story. If you cut out all of the MI6 crew other than Bond's shit, this film might be kind of okay paced. Kind of. It'll be better paced than 2 hours and 28 minutes. But just, oh my god, this film is such a fucking mess. It really is. It just feels, it feels like a rush job. It really does. It doesn't feel like they spent the time to clean up the script. It doesn't feel like they spent time to give characters good motivation. It feels like they were like, you know what? It was too interesting finding out about Bond's history and all that. Let's fuck all that up and make him Blofeld's brother. I mean, I have much more issues with the movie. I'll just go to the pros and cons, because I'm already tired. But pros, Daniel Craig is decent. The film looks alright for the most part. I think it's Roger Deakins again as the cinematographer, but it doesn't really look that great. Oh wait, that's a con. There's like, the action scene at the beginning is alright. The rest of the action, I'm trying so hard to think of good things to say about this film. Yeah, fuck it. I'll go to the cons. Daniel Craig is basically the one decent thing about this film. Again, the Blofeld is Bond's brother thing sucks. The action, for the most part, is really forgettable, not that interesting, not well done. There's like a scene where the old MI6 building gets blown up, which is fine. But for the most part, the film just feels really bland with the action. Pretty much all the MI6 regulars are given nothing to do, and because these Craig films try to give everyone equal screen time or something, it feels like this is trying to become a Fast and Furious movie or some shit. When Q used to be, a bit character, and whenever we got more of Q, it felt like it meant something, like in License to Kill, when Q ends up against the will of M and everyone else in the organization goes to meet Bond in order to help him because they're friends. That meant something. It felt earned. This doesn't feel earned. It just feels like, oh, Q's like, oh, you need me to go against MI6? Oh, it's alright, I have 2 cats to feed. As long as we don't get discovered, it's fine. It just all feels very unneeded. Again, the film is poorly paced. It's 2 hours and 28 minutes. This film is 20 minutes too long. It really is. You can cut out a lot of the unneeded dialogue at the Spectre meeting. You could cut out the... oh my god, so much of the shit on the train. Like, the train... on the train is the moment where they fall in love, which feels so fucking forced in. You can take out a lot of the stuff near the health clinic. Even the Mr. White thing isn't satisfying enough to stay in the film. And yeah, that's all I really have to say. This film is just such a fucking... this is the worst film so far. I do stand by that. I do think that... I think at least Die Another Day had a couple decent action scenes, and Pierce Brosnan was really good still. But yeah, I can't say much more about this film. I just hated it. So, if you like the review, comment down below. Like the video, subscribe, whatever. And, movie reviewer next door.